Good morning. Today is Wednesday, March 8th, and this is Devotions from St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I'm going to take a passage today from John's Gospel, and it's a passage that I suspect a lot of people have heard and just talk about it. It's about the Pharisees testing Jesus with a woman caught in adultery. So this is from the 7th and 8th chapters of John's Gospel. Then each of them went home while Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early the next morning, he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman has been caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they might find some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his fingers on the ground. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first one to cast a stone at her." And once again he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the elders. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again." A lot here, and 2 points that I'd like to emphasize and have you think about. One is the relationship between Jesus and the woman. He did not condemn her, but he did tell her, "Go and sin no more." So Jesus has it in his heart to forgive what we do. But we have to have the part where first we try not to sin, and second we confess. But I also look at the Pharisees. Because as much as I'd like to think it, I'm way too often like the Pharisees. I see something that's wrong and I want to point it out. I see something that someone else is doing wrong and I particularly want to point it out. And I think we all have that in us. Now it says in the Bible that the Pharisees were doing this to try to test Jesus, to try to find some way that they could condemn him. And they used this woman who was caught in adultery. And they cited the law that was given by Moses. And so they were following the law as they saw it. But as happened so many times, the Pharisees would cite a law and Jesus would tell them a reason not to follow it exactly the way it was written. Mostly because Jesus wanted to consider people in the law and not just the law itself. One way to say this, I prefer mercy to sacrifice. And Jesus said that many times. But unfortunately, we have a tendency to be like the Pharisees, and we point out other people's errors. It's a lot harder for us to point at ourselves and say, "I made an error." But that's what Jesus called the Pharisees to do when he said, "He who is without sin cast the first stone at her." And when they thought about that, they all walked away. They knew that Jesus had passed the test. They knew that they had nothing there to condemn Jesus, even though the woman was guilty as charged according to the law of Moses. So what does that say to us? I think we're still called to help each other, to point out errors that we each make. But I don't think that we're called to condemn each other for it, because we're all guilty of errors. We all have sinned. As Paul has said, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And that's what Jesus points out. But I think the big part is to concentrate on Jesus' answer. Don't condemn other people because they make errors. Help them, guide them. See if you can get them to change their ways so they don't continue to make the errors. But you still have to love them. You still have to serve them. You still have to take care of them. And that's what Jesus did. I think his last statement to the woman is a statement to all of us. Then neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. That's the goal for all of us. We won't make it to that goal, and so we'll have to confess our sins. But Jesus wants us to try to reach that goal, and he will work with us to do that. He will forgive us when we sin and forgive us when we confess our sins. We have to be supportive of each other. We have to take Jesus' example to heart. And that means love our neighbors, bear with them when they make mistakes, console them, point them out, try to help them on the right path. But be conscious of the fact that we ourselves are on the same paths as them. May not be the same mistake, but nonetheless, we make mistakes. We follow our own way rather than Jesus' way. People first. Jesus prefers mercy rather than sacrifice. Thank you.